Welcome, Kramer Basketball and Coach's Edge listeners. Thanks for checking out our audio or video if you're watching on YouTube today on three of my favorite offensive actions for early offensive actions when we're coming down in transition. As we go through this episode, we'll explain pretty easily how this could transition to a 4-out or 5-out offense after your initial action. But we started working on some two-sided break with a boys and a girls high school, two different high school teams last week. And some of these things that you're going to see in this video, this audio would build into that two-sided break option. But some of the main things we want to keep in mind, if at all possible, we want to pass the ball across half court before we dribble, and we want to keep our spacing, and we want to let that ball and the defense essentially decide what that next action is going to flow to. And we want to create a small advantage through some of these actions. And then, by teaching these concepts, these actions, we should be able to really get into creating advantages for our offense. So my first one, I'm going to start with our most common one, I was at, and that's our drag screen option. And there's a couple different ways that I like to break this down. So let's say the one is bringing the basketball up the court and can't pass it ahead. So this two on the same side is going to push down to that same side corner. We have the opposite wing filled. They push down to the corner. Opposite wing pushes down, and then we have our trail. And let's say they're running along maybe the seam on the right side of the court. Okay, we don't have anything. We're going to get into that drag ball screen action. So we're going to come and get them. And as we come around this ball screen, I want you to think about the spacing that we're utilizing and if we're getting into 4 or 5-out offense. So if I'm bringing the basketball down on the left side of the court and I have the strong side corner filled, right, this is going to be our tagging defender here, right? And so how are they tagging? Are we running a ball screen into a roll, right? And we're looking to hit that roll, or are we getting to more of our keeping that 5-out spacing where we come off that screen, right? We're able to kick that basketball back across to the 5 and then play out of that position. What do we want to do? That's something that we really want to think about. If you like running an action that has empty corner, right? Which I like that as well. Couple things that we can do there. If we bring the one down, we can simply push our 2 across. We're going to bump. As a ball handler, you're probably going to want a little more space to bring the basketball, the defender down. We're going to get that same side ball screen, and then we're going to play out of it there. If you have 2 primary players that you like to isolate, I'd recommend going to empty side ball screen and then playing out of that. All right, you could run empty side here. You could run a double drag at the same time on the other side to bring the weak side corner up. That's an option that you can use as well. I can also see the argument that if you don't have 2 high level players, you want to give them more space. So you empty side that as well. But in my experience, if you don't have really high level players, almost the defense can help them make good decisions. Whereas sometimes a player who has more options because of all this space available, they're not necessarily making the right decisions anyway. So you might want to put somebody in that corner, right? And then they just make the simple play of using that ball screen, right? Say we're rolling the 5 to the rim. Are they tagging, right? We can lift the 3 out of the corner. We can kick the basketball out to them. We can keep the basketball moving. We're in a 4-out offense right here. Maybe we're on a dribble drive off of this early transition, right? We can pass this basketball across, forgive some of the spacing if you're watching the video, right? We can cut through. We can look to drive this gap. We can come back around. So that's your dribble drive offense stuff. But it's coming out of this 5-out transition set with a corner filled on the ball screen side. All this is running those drag screens. One thing that we try to look for if let's respace this out. Let's say we're going empty side corner, running that drag screen in transition. We want to make sure this, if we're running empty side, especially getting this ball, I prefer it a little bit more on the wing, just because it's easier to turn the corner and attack and reject that screen. And so if we're doing that, I want to make sure that we're getting low enough to set that ball screen up. If we have the corner filled, then I'm not so concerned about how low getting it onto the wing. that corner is going to be a little bit harder to reject. If we do, we probably get that one dribble down. There's a stunt. We might kick it, come through, right? If the corner player has the ball, and then play out of that. Give him another ball screen, whatever you like. So if we peel this back a little bit, and let's get back into our transition setup. I want to get to the other options as well. But we're looking at that transition drag screen. We ran overseas combine. I was asked to be one of the coaches, and one of the WNBA coaches came in, Dan Hughes, multiple time WNBA champion, and he was going through some of his early offense stuff with these prospects who wanted to play basketball overseas. And it was super simple, but it was getting into this drag screen and transition, and running a hook pass out of it a lot of times. So if I bring the basketball down, we run this ball screen, I come off of it, we don't have anything here, right? We throw that hook pass across to the 5. And then a lot of times we were getting into a lift out of that corner. We were coming in, giving a little DHO, give a little dribble handoff type action here, and then the 3's coming off of it. That was a common thing. And I was like, all right, well, that's something we see a lot. And it was cool to be at an actual coaches clinic and hear, a former WNBA coach breaking that stuff down. Did a great job. So just think about, as you're running drag screens and transition, do you want that corner filled? Do you not run a quarter field? I want to show you one more action that I like. If we pass the basketball ahead here, and I cut through, and then I fill, my trailer and transitions coming to get me. We're running this ball screen here. Okay, got me? Why do I like this? I like it because if we really want to promote passing the basketball across half court, this is an easy way for us to be able to get the basketball across half court with a pass. We're still running the drag screen and transition. We haven't changed a whole lot. It's simply point guard passes up, they cut through, they fill to the strong side corner. We run that same ball screen and transition with the same trailer. And then as we come off that, are they tagging the roller? We can lift out of the corner, right? We can stay home if it's more of a pick and pop action, and then we can play a 2-man game if that basketball gets kicked to the hook pass back over to the 5 and play out of it. So I love the drag screen, and it's a very versatile option. Probably pretty familiar with some of those actions already. And if you're really, really trying to isolate some of those actions here, even an exchange on a weak side is going to be beneficial. But depending on what you're doing, you could even run some staggers on the other side. Second one that I want to break down is a flip drag or a pistol action. Let's bring these back, and let's again say we're working on the left side of the court, right? And so we have a player who's up ahead. If we throw the basketball up to him, 1 throws it up to the court to 3, and they fill up through here, we can run the ball screen. All right. So I just mentioned that already, right? Another thing that we can do is get that pistol action where it's a true pitch or a handoff. So if I'm dribbling down, right, I'm dribbling down and I get that handoff into my 3, my 5 on the weak side seam, he's coming over to the ball side, right? We have our handoff. We're turning the corner off of that screen right there. And then what do we want to do? Options are endless, right? Because this is a 3-player action. Now, 3-player actions are a little bit more advanced than 2-player actions, right? If I just dribble handoff, if just a ball screen, there's a million things we can get in there. But once you add in a 3rd player, it's a little more complex. And for your players, there's a little more decision-making involved compared to a 2-player action, right? A different player could slip, a different player could cut. There's 3 brains working instead of 2, right? So we know that's a little bit more complicated. So we really want to work with our players on how do we teach some of these advantages and then play out of it, giving them the freedom while still emphasizing the structure of the spacing that we want to have. That's going to help put all of us in a position to be successful. So if that 1 hands off to the 3 and 5 follows it to set a ball screen, all right, so it makes some good sense right here, right? After that 1 hands off, is the 1 going to go to the corner? 5 going to come off of that screen, attacking downhill to the middle. If we're running 4 out, we're probably going to dive that ball screener into the post. And now we're in our 4 out. It could be 4 out motion. That could be dribble drive offense, whatever you like. We're keeping that 5 out spacing. That 5 is probably going to set that ball screen after the handoff or pistol action, right? They're probably going to camp a little bit closer out onto the wing. Basketball is a little bit more on the top if we're not able to crack downhill right away. Now we're in our 5 out spacing. We can go pass cutter through. We can go pass and screen options. We can get into dribble handoffs. We can get into zooms, a ton of different things out of that. If we rewind this again, and let's say the point guard's bringing the basketball up the court, right? They bring it up. We get that handoff with the 3, right? So now 3 has the basketball. Let's say it's around the wing area, right? If the 1, as the 5's coming up, set that screen. If this is a shooter, like if your point guard can shoot, your wing is a good attacker. Instead of bringing them to the corner, handoff, coming down here, we're sitting here, run a double stagger coming off, boom. At the same time, we're running this ball screen here. 3's got options, right? 3's got options to go either way, right? We going inside, outside with this 5. We're trying to keep our defenders occupied by setting that double stagger. If they can pull it, we can get downhill. We can kick into that option. There's obviously many options we have with that weak side stagger. And if anybody's going to slip, basket cut, seal, and post, right? And we're also getting more of the 2-man game on that side because we've emptied out that corner after we've used the pistol action. So that's something that I want to emphasize. Again, going back to when I was in high school, we had a couple bigs that set really good ball screens. And so anytime we're able to get a single side between myself as the ball handler, them coming up to wing, and us just having the whole side of that court to work with while the other side was occupied, we usually had some really good things were happening. And so that's, something we really want to think about. Last one that I want to get into as far as some of my favorite actions are, of course, the zoom action, right? And you've heard me talk about some of this many times, but let's give this point guard the ball back, right? Let's assume we have the 5 trailing on the opposite side. If we're bringing the basketball up on the left side of the court, we had the same side pushed down from the wing down to the corner. We got the other corner filled. We have the opposite wing filled, right? And we're coming down into this 5 out action. Okay. So if we're running it, we can get zoom in on either side from this point guard, and the point guard can dictate how we're going to run this first zoom, right? So if you have a call, you have a signal, hey, let's run zoom. It doesn't have to be specific, right? So the 1 could simply pass to the 5, right? Boom. And then we can get into the down screen and the dribble at 3's coming up and getting the ball here. That's fine. We can also run the same thing on the other side. So if the 5 now has the basketball, right, we're stepping our screener in, we're coming down, we're dribbling at, and then we're coming off on the other side. I like running both actions at the same time. I feel like it's harder to guard. And yeah, I want everybody on the court thinking, hey, I might get the ball, I might have to make a play. So if the point guard brings the basketball, they pass it to the 5 with a trail, then the wing and the point guard on each side get into their down screen. The trailer who has the basketball, they have a split second to decide, okay, what direction do I want to go off the zoom? Is there an advantage, specific mismatch that maybe I want to try to utilize? They can pick that side. We can, boom, set that screen up with a zoom. We come off, we get the handoff. We've used some misdirection at the very least by having an exchange on the other side between the point guard who brought it down and the wing. And now what are our options? As you know, a ton of options out of the zoom, right? Whether we tight curl this, whether we send a post going down, especially if there's switch, that can be a great option right there, right? We can get back into our traditional spacing. Hey, we ran a zoom, we didn't get anything. We're right back into our 5 out. If you run your 4 out, again, so simple to run 5-out spacing into a 4-out. The 5 brought it down. Reorganize this a little bit. If you're watching on video, say the 5 has the basketball, right? In the transition, 2 comes off, 2 gets the handoff. We roll that 5 to the rim if that's the person that you want to the rim. Boom. Screener pops out into the corner, and we're in our 4-out 1 in. Could be dribble drive, could be a 4-out 1 in motion offense, whatever you like. I'm a huge fan of the zoom, especially if you have a player who maybe they have a little more difficult time getting open. So that screen into a handoff is very useful to help them get them open. If there are certain teams that switch, so you like to get certain mismatches, zoom can be very beneficial. If you have a high IQ big, right, who's able to make some good decisions on whether to keep the ball, whether to attack it, right, whether to read a hard curl or a slip off of that initial action instead of letting the guard come up and give them a handoff, they can really be utilized into that position. And maybe it's not a traditional 5. It's just a player that you like, can play a little inside out, sets really good screens, makes good decisions. That can be a player that you put in that trail spot because they're going to be a big decision maker within your offense, especially when it comes to like actions like pistols, ball screens, and zoom actions. So those are 3 of my favorite. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 written down that maybe I'll show in another one. But in this video, I wanted to show you drag screen with an empty side, drag screen with a corner filled. I wanted to show you pistol action, but also thinking about just that push up. So it's not like a true pistol. It's just pass the basketball as you're bringing it up, pass the basketball up as you're bringing it up here. So let's say the 2's bringing it down. They pass up to the 1, right? They fill, they cut through. They could go to the same side. They could go to the opposite side. Trailers coming back, boom, and we set that ball screen. That's more of like if you bring it a little bit closer, like a flip it into your drag ball screen. You could run a traditional pistol out of that where they truly dribble down, hand it off to the player at the wing, and then it's followed by a ball screen. You can run that as well. And then obviously I wanted to show you the pistol action because I think it's super versatile. As you're running some of the zooms, think about the locations that you'd want to run it in. So I showed you one where we sent it to the 5, so the ball was in the middle, and then we ran down screens on both sides and gave the big the choice to and essentially initiate the zoom on either side. But the other thing that I want you to think about is if the 1 just keeps the ball and they become the handoff person, these 3 players right here out on the perimeter, wing extended up, 5 can come down, set a screen for the 3. As the 1 dribbles in, we get that handoff. 1 can turn the corner from the top side, driving down along, let's say like the middle of the court or the lane line. Now what do we have? Because we're flattened out on the corners, very difficult positions to help out of, a ton of space that X2, right? If you're guarding the 2 in the corner, has to be able to guard. Same thing for X4 if they're guarding somebody in the weak side corner, has to guard. And so if you have a player who's in this initial screen with the 5, they're hugging up because the handoff's on the shooter, paint's going to be open. And so if the 3 can really turn the corner off of this, and so this is something that I think more teams should utilize, is the point guard bringing it down, the 5 immediately going to the opposite side, setting that screen, that wing coming off, getting the handoff, trying to turn the corner, and just keeping the corners filled and not using them with the initial zoom action. I love zoom actions out of the corner, but I simply utilizing the corner shooters to keep the floor, to keep those help defenders spaced and lower on the court. That's going to create more space here that we want to be able to attack into a game. So really think about how that, that area there, how that's going to work when it comes to running your zooms from essentially wing, top, wing in your transition offense. I hope that was helpful. I hope this video was helpful. Comment below let me know, reach out, contact at currentbasketball.com, some of the early offense actions that you like to use, and how you've built it in to run a 4-out, to run a 5-out. I think every coach wants their offense to be smooth when it comes to the transition from one into the next, right, into their half court stuff. And these actions, I think, combine perfectly with how you want to run it. Thanks for listening to the Coach's Edge podcast. If there's anything I can do for you, please let me know. Get after today.